So I'm gonna turn it over to our community here. So we're gonna go to Florida first. Doug, you are up with JVC.
Thank you so much, Scott and Kathy and Jason. Thank you so much for your service and all that you do to give back.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate you, bud.
Incredible community. So my question, I was lucky enough, since Scott announced you as the most popular featured person in our group, I was lucky enough to win your book.
Oh, on the last call, yeah?
Or I think on the last call, yeah, which is whenever that was.
Yeah.
In full candor, I went back into it to refresh my memory and recollection on some things that I read shortly after I got the book. And I really stopped again at chapter 1, The Commander, and the story that you told about your first sit down with Major Brian, and is it Pettit?
You nailed it, Pettit.
Oh, thank God. I was even scared of mispronouncing it.
Oh, no,
I'm not even kidding. Scared. I was literally like, my palms were sweating. And he asked you an incredibly profound question around thinking that I had sat with for a couple days now. And I'm wondering if you could share with the group, sort of set that scene and share the question with us and how that maybe has served as your North Star as you're navigating through life, or has with others that you work with. I can elaborate if need be on the question that I'm.
No, I'm pretty sure I know the question you're asking me. It's what do you think about when you don't have to think? And I'll tell you who you are. Yeah, right. Okay. So for those of you that haven't read the book, and as a matter of fact, if you haven't read the book, identify yourself. Give me a thumbs up in the or something, because
don't be shy.
Don't be shy. I want to see something. Well, I'm getting that information. Scott can relay it to me. I'll tell you the story. So, Major Pettit sits me down in his office when I first arrived into my unit. Just earned my Green Beret, and as is often the case when you're a Green Beret, when you arrive to your unit, you get assigned a team, and you're going to command a team. So I'm going to be the team leader. I'm going to be the detachment commander of Operational Detachment Alpha, so an A team, right? And Major Pettit welcomes me into the company, into the unit. Happy to have you here. We're going to deploy soon. In order for you to not only survive, but thrive, there are some things I need you to do. And so he asked me to do a few things, and he talks to me about his leadership philosophy and all this stuff. And he asks me some questions. And one of the questions he asked me, I didn't quite understand, and he says, what do you think about when you don't have to think? I never really heard that question before, right? And I had a hard time answering it on the spot, And he said, well, let me give you an example. When I was young, I there was a young man who studied to be a physicist, and he was having a hard time understanding the concepts and figuring out the problems. And his father was a physicist, a really successful physicist. And so he went to his dad. He said, I don't really understand this. Can you explain it to me? And the father's like, son, we've been over this many, many times. You're just not getting it. And the father asked the son, what do you think about when you don't have to think? And in the sense of, what do you mean? He's like, well, when you're in the shower, and you don't have to think about anything. When you're mowing the lawn and you don't have to think about things. When you're doing sort of folding the laundry, doing mundane tasks, when you don't have to think, isn't physics what you're thinking about? And the son said, no, it's not. And the dad said, well, then you shouldn't be a physicist. And when Major Pettit relayed that story to me, he was given that question, and he honestly answered to himself that he wanted to serve other people. He wanted to be a military officer, and that's why he chose the career that he did. And so he was following that dream. That's what he thought about when he didn't have to think. And he was asking me the same question. And so essentially I asked the readers that same question. Like, what do you think about when you don't have to think? If you can answer me that question, I'll tell you who you are. Right. And there's so many of us in life where we just sort of, by circumstance or happenstance, we just landed in the position that we're in. We're just doing something, and you kind of look back on the things that happened in your life to get you where you are, sort of out of your control. You didn't decide that, it sort of just happened to you. And so if you can figure out what it is that you want, who you are, what you think about when you don't have to think, you'll find your happiness.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.